Okay, in this video, we'll take a deeper dive into the platform, some of its features, how it works. I'll take you through various elements of the platform itself and how it can add value to your customers. So let's get started. So the first thing you see, and I'm going to talk about this from the point of view of our customer's customer. So I'm a user and I'm a customer of you, the freight forwarder in this case. First thing I see is the dashboard. The dashboard is my snapshot of everything I need to know about that's going on in my world, in my supply chain today. So across the top here, I see I've got my ocean freight, air freight, and road and parcel freight shipments. So I can track all of these in the platform, of course. If I scroll down here, these tiles represent all of the shipments that I currently have in play. And you'll see there's a map here on the right. So if I select one of these tiles, it opens up to show me reference numbers, who my freight forwarder is, when the ETA is as well. And I can see that this one is delayed. So we'll talk about this shortly. And on the map, you'll see there is the journey of the container as well. On the right-hand side, we've got alert. This is where the platform moves from a purely visibility overview and standpoint in the dashboard to proactively telling me what are the issues that I need to deal with before they have a knock-on impact further down the supply chain. Now, typically, these issues would be problems with ETAs, so changes to ETAs because of delays. So on the right-hand side, the platform tells me that such and such shipment is going to be delayed by a certain number of days. Now, in this instance, we can see that this one is delayed by 6 days, which I showed you earlier. We'll talk about that in a second, of course. But in the meantime, I know that these alerts will also be delivered to my email, as well as visible here in the dashboard. The other element of the dashboard is fulfillment. Now, this is the visual representation of a freight forwarder's warehouse network. It could be your own locations, it could be third-party locations who you contract to as well. The platform connects to the warehouse management systems that power those locations, exchanges the data with them, and then presents that data to your customer here. So I can see and switch between, for example, different warehouse locations around the world. I can see what's coming in, what's going out, what's waiting to be shipped, any issues. So for example, do I have any stock issues I need to deal with, as well as things like delivery exceptions. So has there been a failed delivery by a courier? Has a postal service attempted a delivery? I can also follow those kind of processes here as well. And the alerts also apply here too. So when I run low on stock and things like this, I also get to see that in the alerts. And of course, again, it's delivered to my email. So we've covered the dashboard. Let's move on to shipment tracking. Essentially, this is an overview of all my shipments across all modes of transport in one place. You'll see across the top here, I can segment the view as well. So I can look at what's delayed, for example, what's in progress, what's completed as well. What's interesting about the completed page is it shows me the CO2 emission data. So as soon as the journey of that shipment is complete, I get to see the CO2 emission data here, and I can pull this information out across CO2 emissions, but also across all my shipments, carriers, and routes. I can pull this information out as a report, and then I can splice up that data and analyze it as I see fit, which is pretty good. Now, if I head back to in progress, so here we have along the top, this was the shipment I showed you earlier on the dashboard. I see here that the initial carrier ETA was May the 4th. So that is based on the carrier's initial schedule, but actually Moddule's predictive ETA says May the 10th. That's a delay that I need to know about and deal with. The delays themselves, the predictive ETAs, are essentially aggregated data that we pull from multiple sources outside of the carrier's own schedule in order to give you and your customers a better indication of the expected arrival of any particular shipment. If I scroll across here, I can also see that there are tags associated with this shipment. Now, shipment tags can be things like PO data, SKU data, reference numbers, all kinds of different references and tags can be added, and they can be changed by you as the freight forwarder or your customer themselves. We'll talk shortly about tags in more detail, but it's important we mention these at this stage. So I select a shipment. The map reloads, and it's the same map that we saw on the dashboard. Here are the tags again, which we'll talk about later. And then down here are the milestones associated with the journey of this shipment. So I see the journey from end to end. Then I see route details as well. And on the route details, I get to see that predictive ETA too. And then I have the tracking details at the bottom. Now, also what you'll typically see in a live account is documentation attached to this shipment. So things like the packing list, the commercial invoice, they can be pulled from external systems or manually uploaded on a per shipment basis too. So let's head back up to the top and talk a little bit about tags. So for me as a user, I can change, manipulate, add, remove tags as I see fit, but we can also pull tags through from transport management and freight management systems. So from a freight forwarding perspective, if you have a job number or reference number that you want to pull through and attach to each shipment, we can automatically do that via integration to your TMS or MS or actually whichever backend system you use. So that's freight tracking covered. So we'll move to PO management. Now the PO management page is an overview for me as a user, all my purchase orders in one place where I can see the status of them and further details. Now we've taken what is typically a convoluted, complex coordination of information between suppliers, my freight forwarder, and me as a customer, and that process usually lives in email and is essentially shared via Excel. We've taken that, we've lifted then the experience into the platform. And if I show you next the purchase order page, what we've done is applied that process to one single page. So all stakeholders in the process are working off the same information and they can see updates as and when they happen. It's both a communication tool and a visual representation of that purchase order management process. So for example, our vendor information here, a supplier can log in, get access to this page only in a restricted view, and then change things like date ready, pickup date, if they have their remarks and things like this. They get access to that single selection of data, and then they can provide updates. Now, the same applies conceptually to, for example, shipment information. For me as a user, my freight forwarder can update the purchase order management page with things like the port of loading, the container number. Once the container's booked, I can add the carrier details, and then the customer or the user can see all of these updates on the right-hand side via these milestones here. I can see what's been updated and when. It essentially simplifies the entire PO management process and keeps everybody, all stakeholders, on one single page. So we've covered dashboard, shipment tracking, and PO management. We'll now move into inventory. So for me as a user, this is my global overview of all my inventory across all warehouse locations operated by my freight forwarder or my freight forwarder's partners. So here I can see I have various SKU details here. If I select one, I can see, okay, these are my product details. I can see information I would usually associate with my SKUs. Importantly, I can see how many of these SKUs are stored in each of the warehouse locations that I use and occupy as well. I can edit this data as well, and it's shared to all the warehouse management systems within that network. It means then that for me as a user, a customer of you, I essentially log into one single location to update my SKU information rather than having to log in and out of multiple systems to try and get a semblance of what's going on with the network. From inventory, we'll move to inbound. So inbound is where I create inbound orders right here in the platform, or alternatively via integration, inbound orders drop into the platform and are therefore processed at the warehouse level. And I can follow the receiving process right here in the platform. If I select a particular inbound, in this case, I can see the contents, the details above. On the right-hand side, I see the order processing milestones at the warehouse level. So whether it's partially received, fully received, I can see all of that. And interestingly as well, I can tag and add the shipment tracking data to the inbound order. So that means then I can follow the inbound order from inbound freight all the way through to warehouse, inbound, receiving, and onto the shelf. Next, I'll show you the outbound order page. So this is everything being picked, packed, and shipped from warehouses within my network. Again, I get to see the status of each order here. I'm going to select one, and similar to inbound, I get to see the contents of the order. Interestingly here, I have not only the order processing milestones at the warehouse level, but also the final mile tracking. So the module platform is integrated to multiple data aggregators to provide final mile tracking across thousands of courier and postal services around the world. And it's reflected here. So essentially, I as a user don't even need to leave the platform to track my final mile deliveries from warehouse to consumer to retail store, whatever that final destination may be. If I select this button here, I can get a bit more granular in my detailed overview here, so I can really get to grips with what's happening and what the next milestones are in the delivery of this particular package. And then finally on this section, returns. So the returns area can be, in modules instance, via an integration, it could receive returns if one of your customers has their own returns portal, for example, or alternatively, just like inbound and outbound, I can actually create a return right here in the platform. And again, I can follow the receiving process right here in the module platform too. So I get to see the milestones on the right, the contents of the returns, or what's expected, and exactly when that's returned. Now, with returns, of course, I can also see if it's then put in quarantine and storage, or if it's recorded as pristine. Next, we'll move on to the reporting section. So for reports, we put the contents of the report and the power to generate reports in the hands of the user. So for me, I can generate my own reports. I select the data I want right here in the platform, and the report generates right here in the UI. This data then can be exported manually or via integration to another system. But if we take a minute to have a look at some of the standard reports included, CO2 emission data, one that's very important to customers at the moment, as is carrier performance. Carrier performance data is popular with the freight forwarding clients because you can then use that in terms of your carrier negotiations. So that's independent of the carrier data. You get to build these performance reports and then leverage these as you see fit. So a couple more sections to run through here. So in the settings, we have integrations. So the integrations page shows some example out-of-the-box integrations that we've built. And if I select one, for example, Shopify, you can actually see how quick and easy it is to connect a Shopify store in this case. Very straightforward, although there are also instructions included here. We can do things like manipulate custom tags. So for me as a user, if I want to create a category of tags to then tag shipments back in the shipment overview page, which I showed you earlier, I can do that here. So included as standard are PO and SKU data, but actually I could create any number of categories that I see fit. We also have access to things like notifications here as well. So I can select exactly what the platform will notify me about. So remember on the dashboard, we saw the alerts page. Well, this is where I get to see exactly what the platform proactively warns me about as well. In short is an overview of the module platform. I hope you enjoyed the video and we look forward to hearing from you very soon.